Okay, so we are joined today by Allan Kleynhans, who is not just an old ally of mine, he is someone who knows more than a thing or two about what makes people tick. In fact, he's a renowned international speaker and high-end performance coach who has worked alongside big names like Anthony Robbins and has trained a number of preeminent sports teams. So I think it's safe to say that Allan's expertise can be applied to a broad spectrum of situations and professions, including financial markets trading. Allan, welcome.
As I said, I apologize for being late. It's because I was set back this morning and I had a call, and then I had I was talking to a friend of mine who's actually just having some health challenges at the moment. And, that obviously sets the preference, because it's one of my oldest and best friends. And so I wanted to be there for him, and that set me back about an hour. And I was rushing to get down here to this particular place where I wanted to sit down and have this call with you, because from here I need to go to another meeting directly after that, and it's very close vicinity. So now we are good to go, my friend. Facebook is rocking and rolling. We got some people who are joining us there, and I'm ready to rock, my man. You tell me, it's first of all, for those of us who are watching on Facebook, I'm talking to my friend Rob Colville. If you don't know who Rob Colville is, you want to check him out, especially if you want to find out how to use the power of leverage and technology and using the financial markets to invest your money in a very smart way. He's a great guy. We've been friends for probably about, I'd say probably about 8 or 9 years now, although we haven't spoken to each other properly for about 5 to 7 years. Wow, isn't that crazy, Rob?
It is, but I knew you'd come back into our lives and we reconnect at some point very soon. And I've seen you, I've been charting your progress on Facebook, and looks like you've gone on to do some pretty impressive things, Allan.
It's been fantastic. It's been an amazing journey, my man. I'll tell you, it's every morning, I woke up this morning and I go through my morning routine, and I often tell people to practice gratitude. And for a lot of people, even myself in the early days, gratitude first is an intellectual idea, but until we keep practicing, until eventually it drops into our heart, and when we really feel it, we really feel it, and then it changes everything. And this morning I was doing my usual routine, and I was just thinking, wow, I'm so grateful. I was thinking about all the great things, the wonderful things that have opened up for me. I had an amazing year, 2018. 2019 is just mapped out to be so amazing. I've got bookings in my calendar until December. With only the odd gap here and there. And I feel very blessed. I look at my calendar, I'm thinking, wow, where can I find time for myself and my kids, and, to take any new bookings. I'm really struggling to find any space. And so I'm getting invitations left, right, and center. And I just think, I'm so lucky, man. Life is really, those seeds I planted a long time ago. You remember you and I, when we used to be in those small hotel rooms and talking about, the same kind of thing. We talk to people. Those presentations I used to give up and down the country, you and I on the road, and I used to say the same thing, right? Planting seeds, you don't see the benefit for a long time, but when you plant that seed, that one day that's going to grow into an oak tree. And very blessed now that I've got some oak trees really taking root.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I remember you saying that, if you cast a load of seeds and throw them in the air, some will fall onto rocks, some will fall into water, and some will fall into fertile soil and grow into mighty oaks. So you should be a poet, Allan. It's true, and it's good that you're realising the fruits of your labour, and everyone's got to do the legwork, I guess, to get to where they want to be. But you've trained scores of high-profile individuals to essentially become their better person they know they can be it in their personal and professional lives. But what are the main psychological sticking points do you think that people have which prevents them from actually attaining their goals?
What the sticking points that prevent people from attaining their goals? It all boils down to one underlying premise that is rooted very firmly in the majority. I would say, 99% of people's psychology. That one underlying premise is I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. And it's the painful experiences that we all have as kids, the painful experiences we all have growing up, the fears that we learned, as children that were projected onto us by the people that we looked up to with adoration. First of all, our parents, and then every other elder that impacted us and that had influence on us, all fed that same premise. And that same premise takes root in the mind of a child at a very young age, and then really, sets itself rock solid in psychology of people's mind and their psyche. And that premise is I'm not enough. And out of that premise of I'm not being enough, that's where people, that's what stops people from taking steps forward. So it doesn't matter how beautiful your dream is. It doesn't matter how inspiring your dream is. It doesn't matter how excited you are about making that dream real. If you don't take care of that one underlying premise and uproot that premise, it's kind of like weeding a garden. And imagine, I've weeded many gardens myself, and I've pulled many trees out of the ground, done that kind of hard labor. And when you when you find a root, you can find certain roots, and when you start to pull these roots up, and you notice that they all are spread out across a garden, all linked together, then it's really hard work to pull that root out of the ground manually. Think of that like the mind, right? It's that same kind of root that's taken hold deeply in the psyche of a person, and that root is I'm not enough. And if we don't weed that out and constantly weed it out, until we get to the point where we've really freed ourselves from that and we've shifted that around, and now that we truly do feel enough, that's the one underlying premise that really stops people from moving forward.
Wow, so reprogramming.
Yeah, that programming. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not. All of that stuff is I'm not enough. It's those three words. I'm not enough, and that I'm not enough then leads to every other fear and every other inability to move forward.
Wow, so very powerful words here. So reprogramming the minds, and I guess positive affirmations do help a lot. Would it be fair to say, for those people who are feeling that they have stumbling blocks with these kind of limiting beliefs, I guess they're called?
Yes. Affirmations are definitely powerful. They help. And as Napoleon Hill said in his great classic, in 1937, when it was first published, he wrote about affirmations. And when you affirm something, and he wasn't the only one, everyone who followed on from Napoleon Hill was inspired by that book. To follow on in similar footsteps. They've all said the same thing about affirmation. But really, when you affirm something, when you say something over and over and over again with repetition, and especially if you say it using your whole body and you say it over and over, then what happens is it starts to take root. That's if you think about every belief, any belief that people have was first an idea, and an idea is just an idea that you have, and when it becomes a belief if you think that idea over and over and over again. So in other words, if you have an idea and you think it over and over, that is a thought that now becomes deeper in meaning, and the more meaning it has, the stronger it takes root in the psyche. So an idea or a thought or a belief is just simply something that you say to yourself over and over and over again, and that turns it from an idea into a belief. A belief is a feeling of certainty about what something means. A belief can also be described as a thought that you've had over and over and over again. You've had that thought so often that it's become a firm belief in your psychology. And then conviction is the next level up from that. Conviction simply means that you are not even prepared to entertain any other idea on that particular belief. You're not even, so for instance, someone with a conviction is not even open to other possibilities because they're so convicted on what they think is true and how it is. So in other words, the wall is white. But hang on a second, is it white? Could be cream, right? Could be beige. No, it's white. That's a conviction. That's dangerous because now you're not even open to any other possibility, and then you're stuck and mired in your own deep-seated psyche about what something looks like or what it means to you.
No, I see. So when it comes to self-sabotage, I can see that this is quite firmly related to that. And when you see actually very intelligent people who are doing things that they know are wrong. Let's take smoking, for example. Like for example, a doctor who smokes cigarettes, he knows that it's bad, or she knows that it's bad for them, but they do it anyway. Why do you think that might be? I mean, it's probably far beyond what is conscious behavior.
It's because there's a number of reasons for that. It's there's so many things for that. For instance, let's take the idea of smoking, like you just said. Somebody who smokes. I've just been talking to somebody about this the other day, so it works. It's a great example. They know that they shouldn't smoke, and then they buffer that by saying, "Oh, well, I only smoke 1 or 2 cigarettes a day." Okay, cool. So you smoke 1 or 2 cigarettes a day. At the end of the day, you're still a smoker, right? Because somebody who smokes is someone who smokes. Whether you smoke 1 or 2 a day or 20 or 40 a day, you're still smoking. You're still putting stuff in your body that you know is poisonous. Now, why would you put something in your body if you know it's poisonous? Oh, well, you know what I mean? I'm just, but if you look deeper, it's meeting a need. It meets a deep emotional need. And it could be a need of safety, security. It could be a need of significance. It could be just a way of saying, well, this is the one thing that I can do and nobody's going to tell me I can't do it. That's a feeling of self-righteousness or significance. Or it could be just the fact that it makes me feel comfortable. So you've linked that behavior to something where you think it's making you feel comfortable and you believe it makes you feel comfortable, even though you know it's unhealthy for you. So there's lots of different reasons for that. But smoking it then becomes a behavior of the body. It's no longer a behavior of the mind anymore. Anything that you do over and over again eventually is not a behavior of the mind anymore. Now it's in the body, and now it's become a subconscious behavior. You don't even think about it. You just pick up a cigarette automatically without even thinking about it. You don't even entertain the idea of the fact, hang on a second, I'm picking up something, I'm about to put it in my mouth, and I'm about to smoke it and inhale smoke that is, toxic. you don't think about that. You just automatically pick it up while you're watching TV or while you're looking at something else or having a conversation. It's so subconscious. It becomes a habitual subconscious routine of the body. So it's meeting a deep emotional need. And people then link that, and it's linked unconsciously. They don't even think about it anymore.
Well, we see it all the time. I mean, if we just translate what you've said about smoking to the world of financial markets trading, when students of ours have been taught very precise rules for entry, management, and exit, and they know not to break those rules, but they do anyway. Do you think this is generally related to why people self-sabotage, in that it's essentially a reflection on that how you do something in life, or how you do something is how you do everything?
I would agree with that. How you do anything is how you do everything. And that goes for everything. So I'll give you a small example. It's and the reason I use this example was I just did this very recently. Right now, it just happened. I walked into the loo, right? And whenever I walk into a loo, I'm the kind of person that if I come to the basin or if I come to the toilet, if I see anything on the floor, I'll pick it up and I'll put it in the bin or I'll put it in the toilet. If I come to the basin and I see water everywhere and a soap everywhere, I'll clean that up. What I'll do is I'll take a paper towel and while I've wiped my hands, then I'll just quickly do a quick clean. So I was trained, that, and a lot of this to do with the military and boarding school, etc., and landmark and that kind of stuff, where wherever you walk into a public place, if you find something that doesn't really match your own standard, then you should really leave it better than you found it. Most people don't do that because they're so habitually, programmed. They just don't give a damn. And if you go to the same people that leave a bathroom untidy, I can guarantee you that their house is untidy, or their office is untidy. Which means what? Which means their mind is untidy. Their mind is untidy. So, and then people say, well, hang on a second. I heard Einstein's desk was so untidy, it was all over the place. It was crazy. And yeah, you do get eccentric examples. However, Einstein was, what people would call a supernatural genius. And we're all supernatural geniuses. However, Einstein was able to tap into more of his genius than anyone else. And he was a bit of an eccentric dude, etc. And, there's a fine line between genius and insanity, etc. And at times he was considered insane. But I can guarantee you that Einstein knew exactly where everything was if he needed it. And he trusted his intuition and he trusted his connection to the infinite intelligence. So that's a rare example. You can't use him as an example. He's an exception. If you talk about the majority of people, their mind is so untidy that their behavior is untidy, and it's obvious. So I hope that answers your question about how people do anything is how they do everything, and speaks to the point of a mental outlook that is undermining most people's ability to be effective in their life, whether it's with money, relationships, health, whatever it is.
No, that's very powerful. A very good lesson there, Allan. It's kind of like we're just saying, how you do something is how you do everything. It's if, for example, you're breaking your rules in trading and you're not following a set of rules, it's very likely that you're doing this elsewhere in life. So if you're able to harness that and essentially be regimented to a degree that you are following a kind of like a rule-based system, you'll find that your trading really does look after itself, actually.
Absolutely. And the reason for anyone who's just tuning into this Facebook Live is that the reason that Rob's talking about trading was Rob's a trading expert, and he helps people to manage their to trade the financial markets, and as another source of income, and also to become financially free using that particular medium. And he's an expert at that. And I've known Rob for a long time. He's a great friend of mine. So he's going to pertain, and he's going to he's specifically looking at the angle of trading and talking about how his trading clients, etc., most of them will probably undermine their own success and self-sabotage, how we self-sabotage. And it's not a subject that's only pertaining to trading. It pertains to every area of life. But obviously some of this conversation will be, slanted towards trading, if you're wondering why Rob keeps mentioning trading.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of parallels of trading and certainly personal development. And weirdly enough, actually, I had a very good conversation with a pickup artist who works in London. He basically teaches young men how to get good with women, and he runs these boot camps along Oxford Street. So if you've been targeted by him, you'll know exactly who I mean, Ryan Black. And we discovered a lot of parallels between being good at trading and good at dating. And it's actually quite interesting when you look at the parallels, not just with trading and your skill set as a trader, but in other areas of your life, like personal development, which Allan was saying. But a lot has been covered, Allan, on people being fearful of failure, especially when it comes to taking risks that might lead them to get outside their own comfort zone, say a new
Yes.
job or opportunity.
Yes.
But however, not much has been said when it comes to people being fearful of success. Are they not really the same thing in disguise?
Well, fear is fear, no matter how you look at it. Whether you're afraid of failure, afraid of success, or afraid of meeting new people, or afraid of speaking in public, it's still fear at the end of the day. What you're afraid of it doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't matter what you're afraid of. If you have fear, it's going to undermine your success. I want to speak just quickly to what you mentioned there, and then come back to fear. When you talked about, you spoke about the pickup artist, and you mentioned something, and I wanted to come back to it. What was it? It was about gosh. Anyway, I can't remember it now. It'll come back to me in a second. Let's go back to fear, and it'll come back to me. Fear is false evidence that appears real. That's an acronym for fear. Other people say things like, fuck everything and run, or face everything and rise. It doesn't matter what acronym you use, but really, if we talk about false evidence appearing real, which is the first time I ever heard that acronym was from Brian Tracy back in 1988 on the cassette program called The Psychology of Success. And he said, when you have fear, it's because you've allowed yourself to tap into false evidence, or you've allowed yourself to buy into the false evidence that appears real in your own mind. And the reason it appears real in the mind is the mind doesn't know the difference between reality and what's imagined. So when you buy into the false evidence, then you tell yourself this must be real. Then it creates the same biochemistry of fear in your body. So you actually have the same chemicals being fired off in your body as if you were facing, a fight in the street, or a knife, or somebody with a knife in their hand who wants to attack you, or a tiger in the bush, or something like that. It produces that same chemical reaction in your body, even though it's just imagination. So, fear is something that we need to all manage on a daily basis. But it's a different kind of fear that we face in the Western world. We're facing the fears that are created by stress, the fears of not looking good enough, the fears of not being enough, the fears of not being rich enough, the fears of not being, successful enough, the fears of not being good looking enough, of not wearing the right clothes, of not fitting into the right group, etc., of not having the right education, the right intelligence, the right network. These are all, these are all psychological fears. These are not physical fears where we have to run away and climb up a tree in case we get eaten, right? These are the fears that we create ourselves because we've learned these fears and taken them on growing up in a Western world, and these fears are projected onto us by the people that we look up to when we're young. So none of them are really real, but they're real in our minds, and it affects us. You talk about the fear of failure and the fear of success. Same thing, really. People are afraid to fail because they're afraid of what other people will think of them. People are afraid to be successful because they're afraid of what happens if other people will say about them when they become successful. They might lose people in the process. Some people are afraid to make money because they think, well, what happens if I make a lot of money? Then people might think I'm a snob. If you value other people's opinion and if you value connection, human connection, more importantly than you value becoming successful, then you will always undermine your ability to be successful based on your need for connection. So, it's crazy. We've got all these twisted beliefs about money. And, oh yes, I've just remembered what I wanted to say pertaining to what you said before. You said about fear. This whole thing about money, the reason that we talk about money, Rob, and the reason that I love the idea when you bring psychology into trading, as you do, the reason it's so important is because money is one of the most powerful lessons on this planet in terms of our spiritual development. Because we've grown up in a Western world and we grow up in a world where we are trading, time for money, and we've learned about economy and we've learned about supply and demand. That's the world we live in, right? We need money. It's just part of life. And we all need to learn how to manage money effectively and not let it manage us. The problem with that is that most people are growing up, 98% of the human race grow up in an environment where they've learned that their self-worth is equal to their net worth. So if their net worth is low, their self-worth is low. If their net worth goes up, their self-worth goes up. If they make a lot of money, their self-worth goes up. But if they haven't got the financial blueprint or the psychological blueprint and they're not comfortable with having a lot of money, in spite of the fact they're making more money than they ever had before, their self-worth will rise to that level. And then what will happen is their initial programming about not being worthy of that kind of freedom, not being worthy of that kind of money will bring them down, and they'll self-destruct and they'll give that money away, spend it, waste it, etc. The exact same thing happened to me. I became very financially successful and I was living a life of my dreams, but then my own internal blueprint around money and my own lack of self-worth, and I hadn't built it up yet. I was still working on myself and I hadn't built that up to a significant level yet. And what happened was I self-destructed, self-sabotage because I hadn't caught up with myself yet. The money rose so quickly and I hadn't caught up with it yet. And so what I did was I self-destructed. I've done a lot of work on that. since, and it turned out to be one of the best blessings that I've ever had in my life, because it then reminded me, hang on a second, why did I do this? Let me investigate. Let me really go to work inside my own head, and let me ask myself some really hard truths and some hard questions. Why did I do that? I created what I wanted to create financially, and I was so happy. Then why did I self-destruct? And then what I realized is that my self-worth was related to my net worth. So when I was making money, I was feeling good. When I wasn't making money, I wasn't feeling good. And I thought, hang on a second, that doesn't really work. Because if I'm not making money, I've still got to feel good if I want to make money. Because the only way to make money is to feel good, and to feel good about it, but not to make money your master. So you've got to feel good regardless of how much money you have in the bank. Even if you've got zero, you still got to feel good, because that's the trick. Neville Goddard, who wrote the great book, Feeling is the Secret, great book. It's about feeling good no matter what's showing up in your world. So then the evidence that your eyes are seeing are not producing a false evidence. What your eyes are seeing might not be true to your blueprint, but you can tell yourself, hang on a second, this is temporary, I'm on track. As long as I feel good and I'm following my heart, then what's going to happen? The money will come later. That's not the be-all and end-all. What's the be-all and the end-all is feeling good. And then when I feel good, I can now start to materialize what's in my vision.
Wow, very important lesson there. And it goes with what we've seen actually with, I think it's some ridiculous statistic, like 80% of lottery winners who suddenly come into a fortune of money, spend all their money within 5 years and are back to exactly where they were.
92% of them.
Oh, 92. Wow, that's even more staggering.
There was a guy in America who won the lottery twice, man, within about 7 years. He won the lottery twice within about 7 years. And 5 years after he won it the second time, he was worse off than he had ever been in his life. Because he had given away money, he had lent it out, he had family members coming out of the woodwork, he had bought all kinds of ostentatious crap that he wouldn't ever use or need, and then he was broke again, and in a worse off situation than ever before, so not being able to pay the mortgages on his beautiful places, on his houses, etc., and all that kind of stuff. So it's crazy, that's why doing this work on psychology, and especially wealth psychology is so important, because money is a spiritual lesson. And that's why it's one of the most powerful spiritual lessons. We have to feel worthy regardless of how much money we have. Because money is not about self-worth. Money is just money. Self-worth is a completely different situation. Self-worth is the be-all and end-all of everything. If you've got high self-worth, then what happens is everything else will come with that. But high self-worth doesn't show up on its own. It's something you have to develop like a muscle. And you've got to practice it every single day. And that's why I am enough is one of the most powerful affirmations you can say to yourself over and over and over again. Saying to yourself, I am enough. Saying that 500 times a day would not be enough. Because imagine, you're 45 years of age, you're 50 years of age, you're 60 years of age, and until that point in time, all you've ever done is diss yourself or disrespect yourself or give yourself a hard time. You've got a critic living in your head. Now you've got to unwind. You come across this information for the first time in your life, perhaps. You're newly introduced to personal development. Now you've got to unravel 40, 50, 60 years, however long you've been alive, of negative programming. So saying I'm enough once a day or once a week or once a month will not do it. You got to say it every fucking day, all day, right? I am enough. I am enough. I was just sending a message to a client of mine who's in Thailand right now. Not a client, actually, a mentee. Because I mentor younger people, and one of my mentees, and I said the same thing. I said, listen, make sure every single day, like 100 times a day, you need to look. Anytime you see a reflection, look in the reflection of yourself and say, you are a rock star. I love you. I appreciate you. We're moving forward. Yes, I'm enough all the time. You've got to program yourself all the time. Now, other people who think, let's say your family, your friends, who are not into that kind of stuff, they're going to look at you and they're going to say, we should lock him up because he's crazy. He's lost his mind. However,
yeah, just talking to himself.
Let me remind you and anybody who's listening to this, anyone who's watching this on Facebook, the day you lose your mind is the day you finally are free. You must lose your mind to find your soul. You won't find your soul if the mind is around and in control.
Wow, these are very powerful words. So with regards to the affirmations and those tips which you've just given us, what would you say, out of all the many tips that you have for people who want to attain their goals and bulldoze these limiting beliefs, what would be your top 5, Allan, apart from the affirmations? I mean, they seem very powerful on their own, quite frankly.
Sorry, Rob, just repeat that again, because I just lost you there.
What would be your top tips for people who want to attain their goals and bulldoze those limiting negative beliefs?
Top tips. Number 1, read. Fill your mind with powerful information. Read. And read specific information. Nowadays, you want to read about unified field theory. You want to read about quantum physics. You want to read about, astrodynamics. You want to read about, what else do you want to read about? You want to read people like Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton. You want to read Penny Pierce, she wrote a book called Frequency. You want to read Michael Singer, who wrote The Untethered Soul. You want to read books like Dr. Ron Holnick's book, who wrote Loyalty to Your Soul. Read Neil Donald Walsh. The reason I tell people to read these types of books, and I tell all my clients to read these books, and I've got lots of business clients, right? Really powerful business clients in the financial district too, who run, one of them runs a massive financial company, and their clients are investing 10 million pounds upwards. And, I tell them the same thing, and they say, well, why do I want to read about this stuff? Because it's all about energy. So read anything to do with energy, because you are energy. And if you don't understand energy effectively and you don't use it effectively, then what's going to happen is energy will be trapped in your body. When we don't use energy effectively, and what I mean by that is specifically, if we don't deal with trauma, past trauma that in our youth, past challenging experiences, if we don't heal our wounds, if we don't clear something up, if we don't clear these things up, it gets trapped in the cells of your body, and then what happens is later it manifests in disease. So you got to learn about energy so you can clear your energy and you can become a much cleaner conduit for universal energy. So read about that stuff. So then hang around with great people. Number 2, make sure your peer group is a solid peer group. Make sure your peer group is a peer group that really is challenging you and making you raise your own standards all the time. Play with people who are playing a bigger game than you. If you're the smartest person in the room, we've all heard this before. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? Third thing is become your own best friend. And in fact, that's probably the most important part, and it's related to the first tip which I gave you, which is feed your mind with the right information. Because when you feed your mind with the right information, what you'll be doing is you'll be raising your own self-image anyway, because you'll be identifying with truths, home truths. And when I say truth, these are absolute truths. You can't argue with them. Even physics can't argue with it now. Science is now colluding on the subject of physics and of energy, etc. So as I said, number 3 is become your own best friend, but it's just as important as number 1, and the two are related. When you become your own best friend, then you'll never be bored. You'll never feel lonely. I saw this great quote and I shared it on my Instagram story. I think it was this morning or yesterday. And it's Sadhguru. I don't know if you know Sadhguru, Rob, but I'm a big fan of Sadhguru. I went to see him in London last year. There were 6,000 people there. Beautiful man. And I saw this quote yesterday and I shared it. And it says, if you're alone and you're bored, then you're obviously in the wrong company.
Wow, very powerful. That says it all, really.
Powerful, man. So powerful. Think about that. If you're alone and you're bored, you're in the wrong company. So become your own best friend. That means when you're alone, it doesn't matter, right? Because you're never alone. Because you're with yourself, and also with you connected at all times to universal energy. So then if you're happy being alone, then great. You're always in great company. That also then makes you better company for other people, right?
Yeah,
definitely. So read, hang around with the right people, become your own best friend, and invest in yourself. Find a coach. You know what I mean? Go to a program. Do at least 1 or 2 programs every single year. I meet people all the time, and they say, well, you're still doing those programs and you're still attending. I went to a class last night, actually, funny enough. I went to a class down in the city. It was a speaking class. I never heard of them before. It was actually referred to me by a friend of mine. He couldn't make it. I went on my own, and I sat in this room, never heard of this organization, and listened to the speaker. He was very, very good. He was very, very well studied. You could hear. Great communicator. And he was teaching public speaking. He had about 40 people in the room, and I sat at the back of the room, made some great notes, and I thought, wow, this is great. And I was thinking, and I even said to myself in my own head, I said, wow, Alan, I love learning. You know what I mean? And people always say to me, well, how come you always, you always go to these classes? I say, yes, because I'm reminded by Zig Ziglar when he said that motivation is like a warm bath. It never lasts. That's why you have to have one every single day. So it's the same with learning. You must keep learning. You must keep learning. Because if you stop learning, that's when you start becoming too full of yourself. That's when your ego takes over. And now you think, I don't need to learn anymore. And that's the day you start going backwards. So get a coach. Put yourself in a class at least once or twice a year, a program, and seek out the best coaches, the best trainers. Don't be, this wants to lead me. I must be careful now. I want to be led down another path by my ego mind. I must remember to be humble. But let me just say one thing about it. Do your research when you're looking for a coach or a trainer. Don't be duped there's so many charlatans, there's so many wannabes in this industry who are promoting themselves as these famous people, these experts, etc. And they're not experts yet. So make sure you find an expert who can take you to the level that you want to go to, right? The highest level. So that's the fourth one. And then the fifth one I would say is, which is probably, number one, if I could rearrange them, is really develop a powerful relationship with your higher self. Now, you might want to call that whatever you want to call it. For me, I call it God. It's not a religious God for me. God means good, orderly direction. G-O-D, which is how the universe unfolds. Universe always flows in good, orderly direction. There are no accidents in the universe, including everything in our lives. Everything unfolds perfectly. What we have to do is get into the flow with the universe. We must align ourselves with our highest power. We must align ourselves with our higher self. We must align ourselves with our soul's purpose for being here. The ego mind will take us down a different path altogether. The ego mind is about separation. The ego mind is about judgment. The ego mind is about, competition. So we must align ourselves with our higher self, develop a relationship with our spiritual, a spiritual curriculum here, find out why we are really here, keep asking ourselves all the time, who am I? What am I doing here? Who is the I that is the seer? Who is the I that listens? Who is the I that feels? Because it's not you. It's not your body. Your body is just your vehicle. But who's behind that? So develop a spiritual relationship. Find out, what it is you want to connect with. You want to call it God, whatever it is you want to call it, right? God, Allah, Buddha, Muhammad. I don't care what it is. It's all the same thing. It's all universal energy. Now, I know some people that might press their buttons. I don't care. You need to find out what's true for you, not someone else's idea of what's true for you. People follow blindly, and they've been following this bullshit blindly for thousands of years without even questioning it. You've got to question it. Find out who you are. What is your soul doing here? So that's very important, right? Those are the 5 top tips I think I can give you. So spiritual development, develop your spiritual connection with whoever it is you want to connect with, your highest power, universal mind. Get around the right people, read the right information, get a coach, go to a class or a workshop at least twice a year, and then develop your self-worth,
Amazing. These are very, very good tips that you can apply, not just to being your greater self, but also your trading. And Allan, you've worked alongside some big names. I mean, you've worked alongside Anthony Robbins, and also you've trained some high-performance, sports teams, haven't you, in South Africa?
Yes.
For those,
I worked with my one of my claim to fame is, and very proud of it. Is I worked with the Sharks rugby team during the season of 2004. In South Africa. It was fantastic. I met, obviously I met all the players, formed some great friendships that I still have today. There were 7 or 8 Springboks in that team, so 7 or 8 world champions who had won the World Cup rugby in that team. I was able to work with that team and share some of the stuff that I'd been learning, and studying, before I went back to South Africa to set up there for a while. It was a fantastic experience. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the psychology of top sports people. I worked with a world champion sprinter. I also worked with a pole jumper, a pole vaulter.
Pole vaulter, goodness.
And so it was very fantastic. I worked with a martial artist, top martial artist. It's been great. I always say, I learn just as much, if not more, from my clients than they learn from me.
Well, you sounds like you've done a lot more than most people out there who are ahead of their industry, and you really have always been an inspiration to me, Allan, and no doubt you have inspired a lot of people who are listening. So this leads me to say, how can people reach you? Where can they find you if they want to find out more about who you are and what you do?
They can reach me on Facebook. I've got a page, business, Allan Speaks, but obviously if you just type in my name, Allan Kleynhans, you'll find my profile and my page. Follow me on both. On my page, I've got a free audio message that I send out every single Monday morning to thousands of people around the world. And what it is a quick 1 to 2 minute audio message, sometimes slightly longer if I feel it's important enough. I do them fresh every week, so they're not pre-programmed, they're not pre-designed. I do it every single Friday, and I send it to my man who loads it, and it gets loaded every Monday morning, sent directly to Facebook Messenger. And it's a quick audio message just to cue people up for the week, so they are starting the week in the right frame of mind. Also, people can find me on Instagram. I have Instagram is something I'm still developing, and I'm still quite newbie at, etc. So I don't really use it as much as I should. I'm going to start doing that. I've got a YouTube channel. Funny enough, I was looking at my YouTube channel this morning, and it's in dire need of some upgrade and some new videos on there. So this year, my focus is to do a lot of YouTube stuff. So yeah, you can find me online and connect with me. Thanks, Rob, for allowing me to say that, my friend.
Well, thank you, Allan. I mean, it's been a very interesting interview with you. And as I said, you've always been an inspiration to me. So thank you so much for your time. And no doubt you'll have a lot of people getting in touch with you after listening to your pearls of wisdom.
Rob, thank you, my man. It's so good, my man. It's really been cool to talk to you. I'm going to call you and we must get together and have a beer and have a chat, my friend. It's been a long time. Actually, we won't have a beer because I'm teetotal for 2019. But we'll have a cup of tea. And it'd be nice to connect with you again. Thanks so much for inviting me onto this call, and I hope that adds value to your listeners and your traders. And I know you're doing great work with people. Your heart's in the right place. That's why we stayed friends, my friend. And every now and again you meet some great people. Anyone who's watching this on Facebook, and if you don't know who Rob Colville is, and check him out. He's a really nice guy, and you'll I no doubt, just like me, you really enjoy his company if you ever get the chance to meet him.